Today is April 24th, 2017, and I'm here at the Chicago McCormick Place Convention Center during the annual meeting of the American Physiological Society. Today, I have the pleasure and honor of interviewing Dr. Tetsuo Nakamoto for the Society's Living History Project. Dr. Nakamoto is a long-standing member of the APS who's been affiliated with Louisiana State University Health Center, and as a DDS and a PhD, Dr. Nakamoto's research has focused on the mineralization of the tooth. So, Dr. Nakamoto, welcome to the Living History Project, and thank you for agreeing to be interviewed in this series. If you're ready, I'd like to ask you a few questions about your career.
Okay.
All right. So, Dr. Nakamoto, you were born in Japan before the war. Can you tell me a little bit about your family upbringing and your interest in science?
Well, to be honest, I am not particularly interested in science, but the Japanese tradition and the Japanese, my father is a dentist, I automatically assumed as the first son, I would be inherit his profession. And so I am growing up, I decided to go to the dental school. And I went to the dental school, and after that, my father is a dentist, and he said, if you make a nice false teeth, patient would be very happy that because they can eat nice food, they can eat food well, and that is lead to the healthy lifestyle. So as a result, although I didn't particularly any choice in particular area of dentistry, but because of my father suggested, I decided to enroll the graduate study in University of Michigan to study the false teeth or denture prosthesis.
Yeah, I'm sure your patients appreciated that. In your narrative, you mentioned that you had a strange and unusual experience when you were traveling on a train in 1958. Would you mind telling us a little bit about that experience and how it impacted your life?
This is, I still remember that I had one day, just toward to the end of September 1958, a friend of mine just asked me, we have about a week vacation, you want to go to the some mountainside is called Kamikochi. It's very famous, pretty area. I said, yeah, we can go. So 3 of my friends and myself, 4 of us decided to go to that using this vacation. And it's very strange to thinking about that circumstances. We decided to meet at that particular stations. And then I wanted to sit toward to the end of the train, but bell ringed. So which that means the train is going to start. Mm-hmm. So we jumped in the train in front of us, and then the train was very crowded. And when I went to, we get in the middle of the trains, and people start getting out gradually, and as the time goes on, and several hours later, suddenly the seat was opened up. So a friend of mine said, why don't you sit? So I sat, and then there was a priest, which at that time I didn't know he is a priest, and turned out he is a French-Canadian Catholic priest. And I don't remember how we started the conversations, but probably before he get out the train, about an hour, we talked, And then he gave me a name card. When you come back, why don't you visit my church? So we went to that particular area, and he left. And then when we came back, next week or following week, I don't remember, I visited him. And as you know, that Japanese culture is primarily the Buddhist Shintoism, and the Catholic, which I have never heard the word in Catholic, to tell the truth at that time. But I was very much attracted to his personalities. And then suddenly, 10 months later, exact 10 months later, he suddenly died. And then since that time, whether I had a choice, whether I can leave the Catholicism or Catholic Church, or I can go to the church to learn a little bit. So as time goes on, to 1962, his personality, his character impressed so much, so I decided to go to become a Catholic, and I baptized. But in order to remember him rest of my life, I decided to baptize on his birthday, September 21st. That is 1962, but that is nothing to do with the 1962. But I baptized 1962, but September 21st is his birthday, so I decided to become a Catholic.
That's a really nice memento. So after you received your dental degree in 1964, you decided to come to the United States. What were the circumstances that led you to this decision, and how did you end up at the University of Michigan, where you received a master's degree in prosthodontics?
Well, as I said, as my father said, you know, if you make a nice denture, because he is a dentist, and I think he is a very good dentist, and he has a prosperous dental practice. And he said, if you make a nice false teeth, patient would be happy, and they can masticate or eat well, which in turn lead to the healthy life. So this is why I didn't particular preference any particular area, but because my father's advice, I just studied in the denture prosthesis, and then that was the only reasons.
And what about the University of Michigan? Do they have a good program? Is that why you chose
Yeah,
the
I
university?
think so. Well, I think that was a very good program.
Makes sense. Now, you spent 2 years at the University of North Dakota to obtain a master's in physiology. Then you returned to Michigan and did another master's in physiology. Can you tell me a little bit about the decisions related to your experience at these institutions? And why did you choose to do 2 master's degrees in physiology?
Well, there was I don't want to get into in detail and my personal life because there was a lot of things I have to start telling. So to make it a story short, sometimes to simply state that, for example, when I went to the University of North Dakota, Japanese pre-dental school is not quite enough to educate to the basic science of the physiology. So as a result, I had to take the calculus course during summer. I had to take the physical chemistry course and other courses in order to supplement to get the basic physiology course. And then I left the North Dakota, and to tell the truth, I wasn't formally registered, but I was in UCLA short period of time, and then went back to the Michigan, and then went to the MIT. Looking back, it took almost 12 years to finish. I think I needed the time myself, because when I decided to study from the clinical dentistry to the basic science, I always had in my mind that eventually I am going to go back to the dentistry. But fortunately, because I spent thinking about, and I spent so much time being a student, which took almost 12 years, which I needed myself, I finally realized that I really wanted to be a basic scientist in the end.
That's great. Now, as you mentioned, you did attend MIT to obtain a PhD in nutritional biochemistry and metabolism. Can you tell us a little bit about your research training while you were there and the people that you worked with?
It's a very interesting, somehow, when I went to the University of North Dakota, the chairman was physician's internal medicine, Dr. Wilson's. Somehow, Dr. Wilson liked me like as if I am his son. Mm-hmm. And he really liked me, and whatever I wanted to do, oh, you can do it. So I started reading the literature, and then somehow I started realizing that there is not too much material in the baby rats. So I decided to study the tooth germ, which is the origin of the tooth. And then when I did the experiment and I published the paper, at that time, I remember compared to the now, you know, at that time was almost 50 years ago. They used to get ask the reprint request, mm-hmm. And I remember I received the Dr. Sanford Miller, which is from MIT. That is clearly I remember him, and he was interested in my work. Turned out later on, when I inquired, he sent me my reply to the University of North Dakota. He thought I am in North Dakota, although I wrote from Michigan. But anyway, I moved to the MIT, and he is also wonderful person, and he used to tell us, you know, Tetsuo, sometimes bad things is good to our soul. We learn a lot of things. So I think he is a wonderful person, and he was a professor in the MIT, and later on, when I left, he also took the director of the Food Bureau of the FDA, and then become a dean of the University of Texas, San Antonio, and retired. And he recently died.
Mm-hmm. Well, sounds like some very influential people you got to interact with. Yeah. And so in 1978, you came to LSU Health Science Center as an assistant professor in physiology at the School of Medicine and Dentistry. And of course, you rose to the ranks as professor. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience at LSU and maybe some of the people that you worked with?
I think I am extremely fortunate looking back. I met wonderful people in the North Dakota, Dr. Wilson and Dr. Saiki. Dr. Saiki is a Japanese American, came from the Hawaii, and he is a pathologist, but sometimes when I needed some of the slide, he helped me to diagnose. And then I was Michigan's Dr. John Bean. He is a oxygen high pressure person, and Dr. Bean is also wonderful. And then when I moved to the MIT, as I mentioned, the Dr. Sanford Miller, Sandy Miller, he is wonderful also to me. So looking back, I am extremely fortunate that I met wonderful people for my career, to growing up as a basic science, to learning, and then when I came to the LSU, my chairman is Dr. John Spitzer, and he is also always helpful, but he didn't say anything. So again, I am always driver's seat, and whatever I want, I did whatever I wanted to do. So looking back my research career, I was just talking to this morning, I worked almost 30 years as a researcher in LSU, not quite 30, but close to 30 years. And then I am very proud of, I was never take even one day of sick leave, but when I become sick, I become sick in the weekend. That is my wife used to tell me. So I think it's very important. You really enjoy your work, and myself, it took a long time to find what I really wanted, but I really enjoyed what I did until I retired, and I started the company.
Well, it sounds like you had a lot of people that really were influential. Is there anybody else that really influenced your career and helped you develop your area of expertise?
Well, I think in MIT, I am primarily interested in the malnutrition. Malnutrition, my PhD research was malnutrition on bone, and but since I moved to the LSU, somehow I have written several publications, but apparently I don't know why I changed the subject to the caffeine. Now there is, as you know, there is a caffeine journal of caffeine research. But at that, well, there was a caffeine research articles, but caffeine is always controversial because some people say it isn't so bad, other people say it is bad.
Absolutely, and yeah, you've had a number of publications in that field, and now you also have a number of patents. Can you tell us a little bit about your patents as well?
Well, when I was doing the experiment, caffeine experiment, I decided to do the experiment that is feeding the mother diet contains the caffeine. As a result, mother takes the caffeine diet, and that caffeine gets into the milk, and as a result, baby sucks the mother's milk. As a result, baby is influenced by the mother's intake of the milk, which contains the caffeine, and that is going to be, baby is affected by the caffeine of the mother's milk. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know first whether there is some effect or not. And when I did temporary work, I found out that we had we took out the baby's teeth. Mm-hmm. Baby's teeth has first molar and second molar, third molar, but usually I take out as soon as the weaning meaning that in case of the rat is 22 days, and provided that birthday is, I always count it as a day one, and 22 days, baby become independent, and then at that time we take out the teeth, and first molar is really calcified, but second molar is not quite, and third molar is a jelly-like teeth, so that it wasn't calcified at all. So that I did the first molar and second molar, but second molar did not have any effect, but the first molar is. Although I can explain why the second molar didn't have an effect, but the first molar, when I took out the first molar and then exposed to the weak acid solutions, surprisingly, the the caffeine exposed group shows the calcium, phosphorus, magnesium is released more than the control group, which wasn't exposed to the caffeine. So it is very strange why the caffeine exposure is going to affect, why it is going to be released, these particular ingredient, particular minerals from the surface of the teeth, which is, in this case, from the enamel surface. I didn't have too much facilities in my lab, and I didn't have too much knowledge of the hydroxyapatite, which is, teeth is made by hydroxyapatite. And so I look around and I found that the University of New Orleans Department of Geology and Geophysics, which is, geology is hydroxyapatite, stone is hydroxyapatite. So when I consulted with them, they said we can collaborate together, and they had a lot of instruments. So we decided to collect a lot of tools, about 100 to 150 tools of the first molar, and smashed and then separate from the enamel to dentin, and a very small amount, 1 milligram probably, enamel was obtained, and then this was exposed to the Gandolfi camera several hours, and we found out that exposure to the caffeine produces a smaller crystallization compared to the controls, which means, for example, if we have a 1 gallon bottle and second 1 gallon bottle water, and then we put the, for example, 1 pound of ice to the first 1 gallon water, and the second 1 pound of ice, but I smashed 1 pound of ice and put in the second jar in the 1 gallon water. Of course, the second one ice is going to be dissolved faster than the first one because of the much bigger surface area. Mm-hmm. So, in the same reasoning that if the crystallization is smaller on the surface of the teeth as a result of the caffeine exposure, which caffeine exposure apparently makes the surface area become smaller, crystallization becomes smaller, and so as a result, the calcium, phosphorus, magnesium is released upon exposure with the acid solutions. So now we knew this has happened. So I said, if so, if I do the same experiment, but stop it and then grow the animal and then give the karyogenic diet, which is called the dental caries, which primarily made a lot of sugars. And then after a certain period of time, you take out the first molar to look at how much caries is produced. My hypothesis was because of the smaller crystallization, caffeine group must show the more dental caries, which happened to be, it was true. So when I found this, I told to the another in the collaborator who is his name is Al Foster. I said, Al, is there a simple way that we can produce the crystallization in the bench? He said, yeah, there is a simple way to produce the crystallization. So when he showed me the simple way to produce the crystallization, why don't we use the different kind of xanthines, such as caffeine is one of the family of xanthine, theobromine is another one, theophylline is another one, uric acid is another one, so on and so. So we could use the lot of different family of the chemicals to the how it is going to affect the crystallization. Turned out, using this method, we didn't expect it, but the theobromine showed the greater crystallization compared to the caffeine, which is produces smaller crystallization. Caffeine is a 137 position is methylated, whereas the theobromine is a 3-7 position, only one position wasn't methylated. Yet the production of the crystallization is entirely different. One is make it smaller, other one make it bigger, actually 4 times bigger. That was a really surprising finding. So I said, if really we feed the theobromine in the maternal diet, as a result, you take the milk and then baby sucks the milk contains the theobromine and take out the teeth in the same way. Production of the crystallization must become bigger as a result of the theobromine, and turned out my hypothesis was right. And in fact, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, upon exposure of the acid solution, it released much less compared to the controls. I thought this was a very very interesting finding. So as far as I knew, that only thing which is affect in the crystallization is fluoride, and which we found out theobromine. Theobromine main ingredient is incidentally chocolate. So I thought, because I am a faculty, so I brought to the committee to the university and take the patent, and they said they examined and they are not interested in. So they returned to me. So as a result, if you're not interested in, I'm going to take a patent by ourselves. So we took we got the patent, the two patents. They decided to divide the 2 patents, and we got the 2 patents. And then I tried to persuade to the Japanese company and the US company to apply this theobromine to the, for example, toothpaste, and none of them is interested in. So that was until the Hurricane Katrina came, 2005.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's a good lesson in persistence. Yes, as you just mentioned, your patent for theobromine was very contributory to your decision to start a company, the Theodent. Can you tell us a little bit about the company and why? I mean, you've given us a little reason about the starting, but can you give us just more information about your company?
So as you know, we had the 2005 August, the Hurricane Katrina came and devastated, and I always, until that time, nobody is interested in the theobromines, but I wanted to do the comparative study of the fluoride and theobromine. And one day, I told you I used to work with the pediatrics department, Dr. Yazdani, she is a pediatrician, neonatologist, and she had a son called, his name is Arman, and he used to come to my laboratory when he was a high school student, and then he went to Tulane, and during summer he used to come to my laboratory once in a while, and then I didn't know what he was studying later on. And Katrina came, and then one day the mother called me, and my son is studying the bioinformatics in Tulane, and he finished everything in the coursework, but he was going to do the study thesis of bioinformatics dissertations. But because of the Katarina, he left mentor, which he was going to do an experiment, he left, and he cannot graduate without doing any experiment. And she asked, can you help me? She said, yeah, I'm very happy to help you, but I don't know anything about bioinformatics, how I can help you. Well, can you talk to my son? She said, yeah, I can talk to him. So we get together. And I have a patent. I always wanted to study the comparative study fluoride and theobromine, how this effect is different. I wonder whether you are interested in. Yeah, I am very much interested in. My thesis is, I have a program, very precise program, but I have to do any experiment and to put experimental data, this program, and then this sophisticated program and how this program is going to tell me. That was my thesis, so that you don't need to know any bioinformatics, but I will interpret. But we have to do the experiment. So Arman and I got together several months. We did to how we are going to study, and he started collecting the tooth from the nearby dentist, and finally he decided to do the hardness test and how it is going to affect. Turned out, I myself didn't know what will happen, and turned out after the experiment we found that the theobromine is much better than the fluoride. So he was so happy, and he was because he was so happy. So because at that time he was the president of the student body, so he knew some of the people in the Tulane, and he wrote he talked to some media person, and media person wrote a very small abstract and sent it to the media, and media went to crazy because of the chocolate is better than the any fluoride or something. I forgot. And he had a lot of interviews, and I said to Arman, I think I am sick, tired of being rejected, so let's make companies. And so we started fundraising, and fortunately some, because of the patent we had, and we raised a certain amount of money and started the company. That was 2008. And when we started, by the time the toothpaste started was 2012, so it took almost 4 years, 5 years, but we got a design award, Red Dot Award, design award. This is the first toothpaste was a toothpaste award. Toothpaste box was ever awarded, and so but of course we didn't know what would be. Although we made a toothpaste and then we start selling, But we didn't know what would happen. And of course, one of the most worried situation is what we are going to do leftover toothpaste, where we are going to store.
Yeah.
That was kind of worried. First, because of the box is expensive to produce, tube is expensive, and another material, we use the best material, so that it was basic is very expensive. So as a result, the toothpaste is, Walmart, you can buy a $3, $4, but we cannot sell the. So as a result, the toothpaste is relatively expensive. And in the beginning, it wasn't selling, but the people start buying. They noticed that within a week, the hypersensitivity, which is the people who felt hot or cold stimulus, they no longer felt. So we start receiving the email, and as a result, we have to find out whether this is true or not. So we contacted with a clinician in the University of Texas in San Antonio, Dr. Amici, and Amici did the clinical study and turned out that our Theodent is much better than the currently available Sensodyne is, and our data is published and anybody can look at.
That's great. And yours is called chocolate toothpaste.
Yeah,
That just sounds
so
better.
as a result, some people say chocolate is everybody thinks chocolate is really bad, but the chocolate turned out is great.
Yeah, I like that. So if you were to reflect on your research experiences in general, what would you say has been your most significant research contribution?
Well, I think I personally think if now we export many countries, not only United States and Canada, but other countries. But eventually, if we can replace fluoride to this our ingredient, I think I think that I did something good from my research.
Yeah.
I really do.
Sounds like a lofty goal. What advice would you give to students that are starting out in science today?
Well, I think science is for myself. It took a long time to find out what I really wanted, but I needed my time. But in the same token, some people who really knew they wanted the science, they wanted to study right away. But another person might not, but eventually may realize they like the science. But I think the science is very interesting things. I mean, what I am saying is, I think the people have a lot of patience to develop. Like myself, I become academic, and then based upon the academic, I decided to kind of entrepreneur. In the same token, there's some people much earlier age, as a result of the science background, want to become an entrepreneur. I think it's depending upon the individual, but science career has a lot of opportunity. You opened up your eye and looking around, and there is a lot of people wanted to get the advice from you because you are special. You have a special knowledge in particular area, and you can contribute in many ways in the general public, for example, starting the companies, for example. Of course, it isn't easy, but if there is a will, there is always a way. So
it sounds like, everyone has to find their own path. Then persistence is clearly very important. So many scientists, of course, are interested in converting their research ideas into business, like you have. Having done so yourself, what advice would you give to those individuals that want to start transitioning their research into, into business?
I think I would tell them that always open up your mind, particularly when you are young. You can accept a lot of challenges, and the bigger your dream, the challenge is also bigger. But I think I am sure there is a lot of way that each step there is a discouraging thing will happen. But at the same time, one door is closed, another door will always open. So don't be discouraged in each steps, and persistence is the only way. I remember that Howard Hughes, the story Howard Hughes, the girlfriend, I forgot the famous actress, she said one time, I admire Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes go to China and to find out the needle of the haystack. He will go there to find out. That was the Howard Hughes. That was, she said. I remember that she told. And I think the great person or personality, maybe insistence is really good qualities.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like some very sage advice. I know I'll try to be very persistent in my research. It's been great listening to your story, and thank you so much for coming today and interviewing and being part of this Living History program. I think we've all benefited from your story and your advice, and it's something for us to hopefully consider in the future. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you. Thank you.